brother? I'm gonna have a brother? I've always dreamed about having a brother.
Speak of the devil.
Brother?
I'm Paul. You must be Tommy.
Brothers don't shake hands. Brothers gotta hug.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Uncle Tickles, and you are listening to New Dad. I want to thank everyone that's tuning into this episode because it is a very special one for Uncle Tickles here. It is one where we welcome back one of our very first guests, my brother Jono. He appeared under the guise of not being a parent, just my brother, but he fooled us because at that time he was unknowingly a dad to a little fetus growing inside of his wife. So we learned the news he will be a father, and we couldn't be happier here at New Dad. And as fate would so happen to have it, the content gods just putting a little gift in my lap. His childhood friend, Tommy Doherty, the Red Tornado, he learned he was going to be a dad right around the same time. We have both of them on today's episode. We're going to be talking to them about what they expect, while their wives are expecting, and some questions will be asked of Uncle Tickles. We have a little game at the end as well. I'll tell you what, Doherty's on the show, so all bets are off. There might even be a story about a dude biting another dude's thumb off, and it's not made up. It is stranger than fiction. So you're going to want to stick around for this episode. It's been one of my favorite ones to record, and good thing too, because I ended up having to edit it 3 times. So before we get to Jono and Tommy, we're going to have a prod call. Let's take this away. Welcome back. You are listening to New Dad, and this is Uncle Tickles. We have a pretty special episode, as I mentioned at the top of the show. We have 2 new dads to be. These guys kind of grew up, in one case, very literally like my little brother, and in the other case, a metaphorical little brother. We have my brother, Jono, returning for his second visit of the season. Eagle-eyed viewers will remember him from episode 1. And good old Tommy Doherty, who was mentioned in episode 1 as the preferred guest to appear with Papa Pappas. Should I ever have Papa Pappas on the show? Tommy Doherty. Say hello to all of Uncle Tickles fans.
What's going on, everybody? Glad to be here.
So we just learned publicly that Jono and Tommy will be having children, and this is huge news for me because Uncle Tickles gets to be an uncle all over again, and really it's a surreal moment too, because when your little siblings start having babies, it's kind of one of those things that hammers home the passage of time. So before we get into too many of the in-depth, hard-hitting questions I have for you guys, I will start with you, Jono. How are you reacting to the news of learning you're going to be a dad? And I will point out the irony that you appeared on New Dad under the guise of not being a dad, but at that point there was a baby already cooked, so you were kind of a dad at that point.
Yeah, we kind of made that connection. Yeah, I was a dad at that point.
Unbeknowingly to you.
I know. So I think we found out like a week later after we filmed that, or 2 weeks later. So, it's been a big surprise. I definitely wasn't expecting that. And I'm excited. I want to be a dad. And of course, I was thinking, if there was a time where we should have children, it should be now, just because of the age of your children and Gina's children. And more people having children. So if we were going to do it, it would be now. So I'm happy. I know people spend a lot of time trying to get pregnant, and we just kind of did it pretty quickly. So of course, I'm super excited.
Yeah, and you said, I think you were surprised, but you were trying. This was something.
Yeah, we definitely were trying.
You were surprised on how quickly it took.
Right. And we're like, if it happens, it happens. If we can't get pregnant, we don't have children. We were okay with that too.
Yeah.
We were okay with both routes. And
I see your copy of Fire and Blood back there, so we can say the seed is strong.
Yes, the seed is strong.
The seed is strong. The seed is strong. And now you guys recently found out the sex of your child. Are you guys waiting to hold off on announcing that, or?
Before I came on this, she's like, "Yeah, don't tell anyone."
All right,
and I'm like, "All right."
So you can't say on air today what the sex is.
I don't think it's a big deal. I don't want to make her mad. She definitely doesn't want me to say it. So maybe there's something planned.
Okay, yeah. So
on her end, so that'd be great.
Perhaps a gender reveal.
Yeah, perhaps.
Okay. We'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
Doherty, you found out around the same time that Jono found out he was having a baby, and interestingly enough, there's a theory, maybe not even so tinfoil, maybe it's actually a pretty canon theory, that the conception of these two babies happened on the same night.
Yeah, so our due date's September 29th, and Jono, yours and Morgan's is the 27th, right?
27th, 26th, something like that.
Yeah, so a couple of days apart, but we spent New Year's Eve together this year, just the four of us at my house, steak, wine, whatever. We're having a really good time.
Things got weird. Are you guys going to have to do paternity tests to make sure who's is who?
Yeah.
Shit got weird.
Yeah, shit got real weird.
It did. If Doherty's in the house, things are definitely weird.
Yeah, anything can happen.
But yeah, so when I found out we were pregnant, first person, it was weird. I called Jono, Jono's my best friend. So I call him driving home, and he was one of the first guys I told that we were pregnant. And he's like, dude, no way. I just found out Morgan's pregnant too. So, and then we traced it back, and Jono's like, dude, it happened on New Year's Eve. I'm like, I wouldn't doubt it. It probably did.
So that's pretty awesome. And you guys know the sex of your child. Are you guys waiting to announce that as well?
No, it's out. We're having a baby girl.
Baby girl. Awesome.
Yeah.
Doherty, did you want did you have a preference for?
We had been trying for, a little over a year, and we were about to take the next step. We were 2 weeks away from doing the shots, the IVF. So we were that close, and Annie just, she wasn't feeling right, and she took a bunch of tests on a Sunday after we'd been day drinking and partying, and sure enough, she came back. She was pregnant. So I'm just so stoked that we're having a healthy baby, and all the testing came back. But I think deep down, yeah, of course, you always, you probably want a boy, right? But then we're going to try to go for more and have more children. So we just want a healthy baby, and we're so excited to have a baby girl.
So, I mean, like, I'm just interested in your parenting techniques. Like, now that you have a girl.
Well, I don't know.
Like, and how would that differ if it was like Tommy the Third?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably there'd be a lot of differences there with how I'm going to parent the firstborn.
Generally, you can't say what the sex of your child is, but you can say that you're openly rooting for a daughter.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know why. I just feel like I would have a stronger connection, or I'm a better suited father for a daughter. I don't know. I just, if I have a boy, it'd be great. But I feel like I would just be too hard on the boy, and I just would probably expect too much and project myself onto him.
Now, when you say project yourself, do you mean thinking like you knew what you were doing as a boy at the age that he would be, and you would be kind of, blame or assuming him guilty of the same things? Or are you saying, you were into certain things and you would want that child to then be into those same things so you could enjoy watching?
I think it's like if I was that age again, I knew what I knew now, what would I be doing, like in getting into? And I think that's what I would probably be kind of pushing onto him. Like, these things are sweet. Like, these things are awesome. I mean, of course I'm going to there's a part of me that's always going to make sure that he's, going to be walking in nature and asking questions and being inquisitive, no matter what kid I have, but if it's a boy, the sports aspect, I'm so competitive that I think that's just one of those things, I can see us clashing when we get older because of the competitiveness. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a reasonable concern. I will just a little bit of what I've noticed, and it's a very small sample size because, Shep's only 22 months old. It's just wild how this happens, and you don't have to necessarily try to push anything, but they pick up on what you're into, and that's what they want to be into, and it's a really weird thing. So, as far as like worrying about pushing it on them, I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned about that. I mean, it's great to be aware of it, that you're ahead of it. And just the fact that you're conscious, because maybe you're speaking from our own personal experience with our dad, who is a great athlete in his own right in high school. And, who, as growing up, when we would play sports, it wasn't enough to have a good game afterwards. And I kind of get where he was trying to come from. He didn't want us, I think the idea was he didn't want us to be complacent with having a good game in whatever sport we're talking about. But his way of doing that would be to tell you how much better he was than you at that point, and how much tougher he was, and flexing his muscles.
Dude, I just hated fucking taking a car ride home with him after a game because he would just make you cry.
Oh yeah, and God forbid if like you had Uncle Lou or Uncle Tom, more so Uncle Tom. If him and Uncle Tom were in the car together, you were crying like 2 minutes into the drive, maybe before you even got out of the parking lot. They had you in tears. They broke you down.
They would tear us apart.
Doherty here is a legendary stick man. All right. And as such, there is a certain irony of him having a girl. And when I had talked myself into, I think, wanting a daughter with Shep, just because it was one of those things. A couple of my friends had daughters, and I think it's similar to what you're saying about your relationship with your niece Isla. I rooted for a girl, but one of the things that always kept me up at night when I was convinced that Shep was going to be a girl too, was a saying that I forgot who said it to me, but he's like, the good thing about boys is you just have to worry about one penis. With girls, you have to worry about all of them. So
then he says it to me all the time.
He says it to you all the time. I'm glad. I'm glad someone's gotten in your ear with that, and I hope you lose some sleep over that too, because you have a lot of friends with sons that are going to be around your daughter's age.
So, so
And dude, yeah, and remember what we were like back at that age.
Yeah.
So no family
Well-
parties, no like, or when you have the family parties, the kids have to leave at like 7 p.m.
Yeah, but I mean, now there's eyes in the sky all over. I mean, with the Nest and with yeah,
This is true. This is true.
I mean, there's gonna be cameras all over. You know
You're
what
gonna
I'm
raise
saying?
your tech game. All right. That,
Yeah.
I find that to be a reasonable solution to your existential problem.
I mean, are you talking about putting the camera in your daughter's bedroom?
No, but there won't be any boys allowed up there. I mean, you know.
And there will be cameras at every entry and exit to the room.
But Doherty, okay, let's think about this. Whenever your parents had like legendary Doherty parties and they were all rocking and we were like 15 years old, 16 years old, we were all over the house in bedrooms doing whatever.
Yeah, we were.
That's what I'm saying. You got to have like a hard cutoff time for kids out. You like before they can get into too much trouble. You just have to cut that off.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah. Whenever I think of like everyone's kids, I automatically like kind of do the math to when they're like going to be 20 years old. Like, okay, where are they when they're 20, when they're rocking? Are they in the same age group? Are they going to be rocking together? Because like we have some older cousins too. I'm like, are they going to be rocking together? Like when they're 21, 22 years old? I hope.
Yeah, there's a nice little cluster where I think, a handful of them will be.
There is.
For sure.
Yeah. My sister has 3 now. She just had Blair. So she's got 2 girls. She's got Isla 5, Griffin just turned 4, and then Blair is not a year old yet. She's still a newborn. So Blair and our baby girl will be they'll be within a year because she was born in October. So
Doherty, I'm also curious whether or not you've decided are you going to go by Dada Doherty or Daddy Doherty? Do you have a sweet dad name picked out?
do I have a sweet? No, I mean, Papa Doherty is what we call my dad, right? But no, I mean, I just call me Dad.
Just call you Dad? All right, that's pretty boring. Jono, we've discussed at length about how, and when I say we've discussed at length, I'm talking about my wife and I, how I just will never be able to hold the mantle of Papa Pappas as hard as I try. You're much more probably able and capable to carry that weight on your shoulders. Are you, well, and not only that, but you actually carry his name. You're his namesake as well. So for many reasons, you're probably more appropriate. Have you decided that you're going to go by Papa Pappas?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I can carry that either. I want to be able to. I think in order to carry that name, like I'd have to fight him for it.
That's probably a really good point.
Yeah, and I don't think I can win.
No.
No.
I mean, he's 60-something years old. I'm probably in my prime, and
he'll be 61 in September.
Lose.
Yeah.
I would still lose.
Yeah. I mean, it's a scary thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's like a few routes I want to go with my child, like totally creep him out, and really not have him call me anything. But yeah, or just have him call me something like Papa Pappas and not Dad.
Yeah.
Or something weird. But I don't know. I will probably just go with Dad. And
yeah,
it seems like the default. I don't know. As a new dad, I don't know. He might say it, and I'm gonna be like, oh, weird. Like,
yeah.
Don't call me that. Oh, let me think of something else. But I don't know. Maybe I gotta try on a few names, I guess.
Yeah. I had a buddy growing up, and his dad's name was Monty. He was like our best friend living down the street in Chicago. And the 3 kids, they called their dad Joe. That was it.
Joe.
No dad, no Monty, nothing. His name was Joe all the time. That's what they called their dad. I just thought that was strange, but that's what he went by.
I really pushed Papa. He just didn't take it. It's so strange that he ended up. I mean, his first word was Dada, but like we weren't using it at home, so I don't know if they were pushing it at daycare. We do have that Jimmy Fallon Dada book, which I think we gave. Did we give that to you, Doherty, as a present?
Yeah, we got. Yeah,
I credit that book to him saying Dada because he liked it a lot and we read it, very often. So it's probably because of that. But halfway through reading it, I actually made the realization that I should switch it to Papa. So I don't even know if I can credit that, because even though the book was called Dada, I was reading it as Papa. So it did not work. He still said Dada, but it's one of those things, I'm sure, when your children are born and they get to the point where they're saying their first words, and whatever they do call you, you're probably going to be fucking thrilled. Yeah. I'm going to switch gears real quick. One of the questions that Leo wanted me to ask you guys was, if you could name maybe one thing that you really want to emulate that your parents did as parents growing up, and then one thing that you absolutely would not do, that your parents did, that you're growing up. Do you have, and take a second to gather your thoughts, but do you have anything that jumps to mind?
Yeah, I would just say I'll start with the negative. One thing not to do, geez, my dad was a hellraiser, oldest of 11. I mean, he just was in and out. I went to 3 different high schools, got kicked out of all 3 of them in Chicago, was in a gang. I mean, he was a bad kid growing up.
He bit off his father-in-law's thumb.
Yeah, I mean, he did a lot of stuff.
At the rehearsal dinner of their wedding.
Yeah, I mean, he grew up North Side Chicago. I mean, rough neighborhood, and he did what he had to do. So obviously, his way of kind of teaching us not to do that was education. I mean, we knew at a young age what Dad came from, like what his background was. We were aware of what he had to do to get to where he is, and very successful, self-made guy. And same thing with my mom. I mean, they both grew up with,
very little.
Very, very poor. They didn't have 2 pots to piss in or a window to throw it out of. I mean, they had to make everything that they have. So I think the hard work and education that they instilled in us is just unbelievable. The work ethic that, if you put your mind to it and you work harder than anybody, you can be successful at anything you put your mind to. And they really, they stress education and hard work, loyalty, respect, all those things at a very young age, and family. And then the love for each other. I mean, they're still married after all these years. Geez, what are they going on? They got married in 1980. That would be, God, we're going to be celebrating a big one here coming up for them. So, I mean, there's a lot there that we can take out of their book. I mean,
it'll be 40 years.
Yeah. We got a big one that we're celebrating coming up.
I feel like we can't leave our audience hanging on that throwaway story. So, some background. Because your dad was a hellraiser, your mom's dad was not a huge fan of them getting married.
Yeah, my mom's stepdad.
Oh, your mom's stepdad. And at the rehearsal dinner, there were some words.
Yeah, there's some words, I guess.
And then those words ended with your dad biting off part of your grandpa's thumb, or your grandpa's thumb.
Yeah, they were having the rehearsal dinner they were having drinks afterwards, like after the rehearsal dinner at my grandma and grandpa's house. They had a bar in the basement on the north side, right off of, I think it was Winnemac Park. And
Jimmy Stabler lives right off Winnemac Park, by the way. Shout out to Jimmy Stabler over at Winnemac Park, where the Muffin Man lives.
Yep. So Lincoln Square area. And my grandpa came home, Grandpa Nick, big Italian guy, and he was not having it and tried kicking everybody out, I guess. And I think he called my Aunt Kathy a bitch, and my dad just went nuts. That's my dad's sister. And he just flew off, and they went at it and started beating the shit out of each other. And somehow Grandpa Nick ended up fish hooking my dad or something, and the thumb ended up in the mouth, and my dad just bit it off. And I mean, the guy bit off a chunk of the guy's finger, laid him up in the hospital. So he wasn't at the wedding.
No. And imagine, like, that's a crazy fucking story, but imagine learning that story about your friend's dad when you're in like 7th or 8th grade, and then having to, and the man, your dad was always nothing but amazing to me. And, you mentioned your sister Tara. She was just a grade below me. So I was friends with Tara, Jono, and you were best friends. We were over at your house a lot. Both your parents, not just your dad. Your mom was always fantastic and sweet to me. But your dad especially, your dad's one of those guys who, even at a young age, he takes you and he makes you feel like you're one of the guys, and like, puts you onto some knowledge real quick that maybe a lot of 11, 12, 13-year-olds aren't hyped to know. But like a fucking fantastic dude, and I should say, in a time when me and Jana were probably at our lowest, your dad was the first person up to the plate to help us. And so that just speaks, volumes to him as a person and just what you guys meant to us as a family and why, and why you're on this episode, why I'm so pumped that you're having a kid and joining the ranks of new dads here. I thought my dad was a wild ass dude. And then hearing that story, I was like, wow, there's other people like him out there. It made me actually feel somewhat normal, which I think is a nice transition over to Jono. Jono, we've talked before on the show about our parents and some of the good and some of the bad. But let's start with the good. Let's start with what you would try to emulate from mom and dad.
Yeah, and I think Doherty kind of touched on a few of these too. I think family, how we were just so close, and I guess growing up, all the aunts and uncles were always pretty close. The cousins were always really close. I'm really close with you and our two sisters. So I think that's super important. That's something that, hopefully we have another child so they, can have a brother or sister or whatever, so they can be close as well. Education, I thought that was another one. As strange as it sounds, Dad really never gave too much advice, but definitely school was one of those things that he did stress, like, hey, you should do good at school. Like, that's important. I kind of took that advice, and the last thing would be work ethic. And I thought he had an amazing work ethic, and I, try to have one as well. And I learned that from him, and I would want my, child to have a great work ethic as well, and earn everything they get. So yeah, those are the things when I think of mom and dad that definitely rubbed off on me.
Awesome. And then the things that you would not emulate.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's just so many things that I would pick. And I was trying to think of one that was like, wow, I can't believe like that is something that they never really did. And I would probably say like trying to get to know my child, like as a person, I never had that connective conversation with mom or dad or them ever trying to learn who I was as a person. There wasn't a very deep connection, I would say. And I get the circumstances like of maybe why that never happened. But I think I would want to really know who my kid is and spend a lot of time with them and ask them a lot of questions and get them thinking about things because I think most of the things that I thought of were self-generated or generated by the peers around me, not by my parents.
Yeah, I would say that's an excellent point. Having grown up with the same parents.
Good point. If I just speak to that a little bit, John, I agree with that. They didn't ask us to question things a lot more, right? It was just, this is what you're doing. This is why you're doing it. Work hard and everything. They didn't really try to understand us growing up and ask us to question more, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things that I think me being a science teacher, I just am always questioning, and that's what I'm always asking my students to do. And that's what I would always want my child to do is, if you're doing something, you should ask, why are you doing this? How does this work? And try to go from there, and I wasn't asking those questions. But I was more, I think I was more into playing sports and roughhousing. And I think that's where all my time went, not thinking, just doing brainless activities, but my motor skills were great. Athletically, I was probably inclined in a lot of different sports. I feel like it's one of those things, everything I try, I'm fairly good at, and I probably contribute to it because my childhood was spent doing those things.
Yeah. A lot of sport.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think it's not just something that's generational, right? Because it is partly generational. Our parents come from a similar time where, each generation's always telling their kids how much harder they had it, and as far as like the relationships with their parents And I think it's probably no different. You know, we're going to be softer dads than our dads were, and I don't think that's necessarily always a bad thing. You know, I think it depends on what your natural setting is, right? And you know, certain people are going to need to soften it down, and other people probably need to show some more hard love. But it's also, I think, very indicative of where our parents came from economically, right? We both talked about them not having shit, and when you're from that worker class, there's kind of a mentality of like, shut the fuck up and do your job, right? And that's kind of what they've grown up with a lot of times. And you know, if that's their experience, then that's probably what they're kind of showing you, like, hey, this is what life's like, right? This is what I found it to be. You know, it's not necessarily about, you know, daydreaming and you know, asking all these like questions that are, you know, of philosophical or just even just curious or you know, curious nature. It's like, hey, you do this, and you know, or I have to do this, so go fucking entertain yourself. You know, go do what you have to do while I do this. Let's talk about the naming of a child, and you know, I don't know where you guys are, and Jono, I know you know you're not talking about the sex, so I'm not going to ask to reveal any names, but more so just the process. Is it something that you found to be more challenging than you thought it would be? Because that was certainly the case for us, you know, the second time around, especially with Shepherd. I think we had that name. We had two names, a boy and a girl name, settled on fairly early. How are you guys going about? Doherty, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so me and my wife come from probably the largest Irish families in Chicago, so all the great names are taken.
Well, right before social distancing became a thing, we had an opportunity to have a brunch with you and Annie. And we talked about a name that, you know, that meant a lot for you personally, and then also, or you and Annie both, you guys, and you know, I'm wondering if it's still in the running. Are you guys still considering Trump as a name for your daughter? Because I thought we left that brunch with an understanding that the baby's name, regardless of sex, was going to be Trump.
Trump Doherty. I like it. Yeah. Powerful name. It's a very powerful name.
Yeah. No,
excellent name.
The best name, the most magnificent. Jono, how's that conversation? Have you guys, you know, I imagine it started, you know, the minute you have a kid, you start talking about names, in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole process went like, we just really wanted a girl, so we only came up with girl names. So we have a girl name set, and we will either use it or not.
So if it's a boy, are you guys kind of fucked? Are you guys like, or do you guys have some candidates?
We haven't really given it a thought. We've thrown around names.
You guys are very confident it's going to be a female. We
are. I am.
You are, okay. Yeah. Well, here's a question that just kind of popped in my mind. It's been cool to see you know, you and Shep, and the social distancing thing makes this obviously really hard, but you know, you and Shep have a genuine, I think, relationship, a connection. He loves his Junky. He likes to FaceTime him. Has that changed your perception at all, as like openness to a boy, because you're seeing Shep? And you also have a nephew, Mac, as well, you know, so like those relationships with Mac and Shep, do they help you, I guess, kind of get a little bit okay with the idea of it possibly being a boy, if it, you know, because I think one of the hard things is with the whole idea of, we're talking about genders of the baby, is like nobody wants disappointment one way or another, right? And so if you start thinking going one way it's a girl, you know, is that kind of like your safety net? It's like, oh, you can look back and be like, well, you know, I love Shep, I love Mac, so a boy will be good.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I have a boy, I'm not going to be disappointed. I mean, of course I want a girl. There's going to be an initial disappointment always, but I mean, regardless, it's your child, you know? I mean, boy or girl, I'm going to love that thing no matter what.
I'll open it up. Do you guys have any questions for me before we get into the last thing I have for you guys?
Yeah. What do you know about eating the placenta?
I mean, I know you're a savage if you just go straight to the hospital, like the hospital floor, and pick it up and start chomping. Yeah. Raw. I think you got to do it just like Daenerys ate the horse heart in Game of Thrones. You just fucking pick that shit up and you got to go hardcore and just chomp down a couple times. You know what? So I would say this, from the very little I read, and so I'm probably not a good reference for this question, or what I'm going to suggest you to look into. If you're interested in the placenta, I would say spend more time looking at the cord, and because they can save the umbilical cord for a bunch of stem cell stuff. And that is what I would, if I was going to. It's somewhat expensive. Looking back with both kids, I wish I would have done it. It's stupid not to. I think the way science kind of progresses, I think there's going to be so many people that are regretting not doing it because they didn't want to spend a couple $1,000s.
What is the time you can take? You can use the umbilical cord for.
Yeah, what they'll do is it's another, and your doctor should tell whoever your wife's doctor is, that she's going to see throughout the pregnancy. She should give you some information on it, but if she doesn't, I would just ask about it. But it's another company. Basically they send it off to them, they save it, and there is some some data, very exploratory, saying that they can save it for stem cell purposes if something should happen and science should progress. Your kid might actually benefit from it greatly. That would be, I would say, do that. Like that, I think is significant. I think the potential benefit of that significantly outweighs the potential benefit of having your wife's placenta capped and then taking those pills later.
Yeah,
that's just my 2 cents. I'm not a scientist. Actually, let's go to John. Johnny, you might actually have more to say about that.
Yeah, John, you should know.
You're a fucking scientist.
Yeah, I mean, people. It's exactly the stem cells. That's what they would use them for. I don't know. I mean, it depends. And science isn't there yet, so and I don't know if it will ever be in their lifetime, but you never know.
It's the same reason people get cryogenically frozen.
Right. I mean, it's like Tom said. It's
you're betting
always
on science.
changing. It's tentative. It's subject to change all the time. So, yeah. I mean, if you have the money, why not?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like it wasn't outside the realm of financially unreasonable. We just didn't do it just because it was like another thing. It was more money. It was.
Right.
I just kind of wish we would have, just because, like I said, if you're going to bet on something, betting on science isn't a bad thing. Any other questions for Uncle Tickles? Expecting new dads.
Baby, I was gonna say, do you have any recommendations on anything like Lama's class, anything like that? Did you go to any classes with Lita before you guys had your first baby?
Yeah, we did. We did as we mentioned before, both of our kids were born at Prentice. So we did a introduction to birth class, which, it's a long class. I think it's 8 hours. But the nice thing about it was they took you on a full-on tour, right? They took you behind the stage, they tell you exactly what to expect. If you were to have a baby there, they take you to a triage room. They take you to the room you're going to give birth in. They take you to the room they transfer you after you have birth in. They really give that kind of full-on exposure to you as an expecting parent. And that was, we didn't do a ton, but that was one thing we did do. And holy shit, I can't tell you how much I think we benefited from that, because it gave me such a peace of mind that day, because with Solo, it was an induction date, but with Shep, it was 2 weeks before his due date. It was a Sunday. Lita, she had been having some Braxton Hicks, but it was one of those things where I didn't believe she was having a kid that day. The whole day she was like, yeah, I kind of feel it. And then all of a sudden at 1 o'clock in the morning, she's like, yo, this is getting intense and this baby's going to come. And we had to go to the hospital that night. And because we had gone through that class, I knew exactly where to park. I knew what entrance to come through. I knew we were going to be in this room until she asked for the epidural. I knew I had a lot of expectation. And I feel like if I didn't know that stuff, if I hadn't taken that class, I would have been like, hey, where I wouldn't have gone to the right parking garage. We probably would have had to walk 2 blocks, 3 blocks. If you're familiar with the Northwestern Medical Campus, there's a bunch of buildings. They're all interconnected, but it's not necessarily totally easy to get around. It's really actually easy to get turned around and kind of lose your bearings because the buildings are so tall. You lose sight of the lake. You can't find the river. You know, there's a lot of reasons that kind of confuse you as far as directionally, and that was one thing we benefited from. The other thing, and this was something that I was not even on my radar, breastfeeding class, like doing and I would almost have someone on deck as like they call them lactation consultants or lactation specialists for after the baby comes, because that was something with Shep. It was an undue stress. You know, if we would have gotten the lactation specialist a week before we actually got her to come in, it would have made those first 2 weeks we had with him so much easier, because, you know, he wasn't latching right. It was causing physical pain to Lita. It was also causing him to not necessarily eat as long as he should, and a bunch of other things. And you know, this second time around, we got a lactation specialist again. You know, even though we've already done it, we had another one come, just because it's nice to have someone else who's, you know, an expert in that field watch you do it and be like, hey, oh, you just got to tuck in this elbow a little bit. That's what you're doing wrong. Like, tuck in your elbow, or even just pushing in the baby's chest or shoulders, and stupid little things like that. And they make a world of difference. And if your baby's latching and feeding good, I can't tell you how much easier that makes things for everyone. So another thing I wanted to do is just play a quick game. Sometimes it's something we like to do here. Another trend with my games, I don't have great names for the games yet. So I'm going to give you real life situations that I've run into as a dad. And I'm curious as to your interpretation of what how your own fathers would handle that. And if you want to chime in with maybe if you think that reaction from your father is appropriate or not, please do. So, Papa Doherty, he is taking a bath with his son, and his son shits in the tub. How does Papa Doherty react to having a shit float up in the tub with him?
How old is his son?
His son is 18 months old.
18 months old. Well, and there's a floater in there. Yeah. Oh, wow.
While he stares at you, he's staring you in the eye, and he just shits in the tub with you.
I think he laughs hysterically first and gets up and probably finds a nice towel to wrap him in and steps out of the bathtub nice and calm, cool, collected, and has a good laugh about it.
I'm thinking he bites this kid's wiener off like a thumb. Just takes that shit off. Jono, how does Papa Pappas react if your 18-month-old Jono is in the tub with Papa Pappas and 18-month-old Jono takes a nice little dumper?
So, and I'm answering this as our father.
Well, no, you're like, yeah. How would our dad react to that? If like put yourself in Dad's shoes, like knowing Dad as you do.
Initial reaction probably, whoa, what the fuck? that would be his initial reaction when he first realizes there's a turd in there. And then I imagine he immediately takes me and him out of there. But yeah, I think Dad was he was pretty good like that. Yeah. You know, he was fairly understanding.
That was pretty similar to my reaction. That was pretty similar to my reaction when it happened to me. That was a pretty fair reaction. I'm still thinking Mr. Doherty takes a chomp off the dick.
Yeah. And maybe that's where the can opener came from.
Yeah, that's that's a good point. That's an excellent point. It doesn't answer some questions. Yeah. Okay. This is also bath related questions. So a lot of bath related questions here. We're gonna go to Papa Doherty. Papa Doherty is in the bath with his son, and his son is fixated on his wiener. So Papa Doherty tucks his wiener and does a mangina out of his own shyness. Now his son is concerned and keeps asking him, Dada, wiener, where'd it go? Dada, wiener, where'd it go? What does Papa Doherty do? Does he show him his wiener again, or does he do something else? How does he handle that situation?
I don't think Papa Doherty would never pull a mangina move ever. I think he's a proud man of his junk. He's such a proud man of his shaft. He's got nice equipment. I think he's like, yeah, you like that? Yeah. I mean, or kind of loving and gloating in the fact that his son is admiring his shtick. And yeah, that he's hopefully passing that down one day. I don't think that ever happened, but yeah.
Okay, I can see that. No, I definitely get down on that.
Yeah, I don't think he ever pulls a Buffalo Bill.
Gotcha.
I don't think that.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. I accept that. John, I have a feeling maybe, John, you're heading in a similar direction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Papa Pappas would ever Buffalo Bill, but he kind of resembles Buffalo Bill in a way.
He does. Oh, wait, we should great big fracture.
Wait.
Yeah, he was more of an aggressive dick shower when we were younger. Like he would pop out of the bathroom and rip his towel off and just scream and have his like dick hanging right in front of us, you know. So he didn't really hide it. Yeah, he just put that on display for us to see a lot.
He would Pat, he'd tell stories, right, about swim class.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So if you got a boner, you'd have to sit on the diving board with your boner,
with a towel on your boner until the towel dropped.
Went down. Yeah.
That's Catholic schools for you. That's how Catholic schools had it.
So yeah, no mangina. Definitely a lot of dick shaking.
Yeah, he did shake it a lot in our faces. Okay, so this one didn't actually happen to me, but I did see it happen to a father-son combo. So you are at the Bears game, and you are in the Cadillac Club, and you spot a nice little honey over at the bar. So you go and you start talking her up, and next thing you know, you got your hands on her butt. But your hands meet another man's hands, and when you look, you realize it's your dad's hands. So you and your dad are feeling up the same butt. How does Mr. Doherty react to that moment?
That's my boy. It's like the wink. There's a high five. I've probably been in that situation before. Yeah, I mean, he's got the rap, man. Old man's got the rap. He's still got it. He's got the gift of the gab, that's for sure. He likes the company of beautiful women like we all do, but at the end of the day, he's always going home to Julia, you know. But it's always, you know, it's always fun when we're at the Bears game, sitting in Cadillac Club. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, and yeah, that's very similar. Jono, how do you think Papa Pappas reacts?
I can't even see Dad touching a girl's butt. Like, I can't imagine that. But if him and I were both touching, you know, that like grin that Dad gets.
Oh yeah.
You know, where he finds something hilarious. I imagine we would get that rare glimpse of Papa Pappas and enjoying something in life.
Yeah. It is a very rare glimpse.
Yeah. It's like he got his cigarette and his World War II book. Dogs. It's that look.
Yeah, that is pretty accurate. All right, guys. Well, that's been a fun game of what would our dads do. Maybe that's the name of it. You know, maybe we'll have you guys on a little bit closer to the burst or right after the burst, and we can see how you guys are doing as dads, and also play the game again. I think you guys are going to be both great dads. You know, I don't really have any fears for you guys. I think, you know, it's something that both in your cases, whether you guys have known it or not, it's, you know, something you've probably been prepared to do for a while, and it's going to be cool to see you guys be dads. So I'm excited. I fucking love you guys. We're going to talk to you guys again soon, as we said. Probably get you guys set up on a follow-up episode once the babies are born. Until then, I'm sure we'll be in contact. Uncle Tickles loves you, and Prob Cause, take us away.